Officer, I haven't broken any laws. Why am I being pulled over? The cop glared at the red Ferrari, then at the black man behind the wheel. He spat on the hood. $200,000 and a black boy driving it. He laughed. Get your ass out. Sir, I'm complying. Did I say speak? He yanked the door open, dragged Darius out, and slammed him against the hood. You people are all the same. Thieves, drug dealers, animals. He pulled out his keys and scraped them across the Ferrari's door. A deep, ugly scratch. A monkey doesn't deserve a car like this. A pickup slowed. Wreck that thug's ride, officer. A teenager filmed, laughing. No one helped. Just a black man watching a cop destroy his $200,000 car. But the officer scratching the paint, the crowd cheering, they had no idea who they were messing with. 6 hours before that traffic stop, the morning sun crept through the blinds of a modest home in Decatur, Georgia. Darius Kane stood in front of his bathroom mirror, adjusting the collar of a freshly ironed dress shirt. The fabric was crisp. The creases were sharp. Every detail mattered to a man who had spent his life proving he belonged in rooms that didn't want him. 38 years old, 14 years with the Federal Bureau of Investigation, a veteran of the Public Corruption Unit who had personally put 17 dirty politicians and 11 crooked cops behind federal bars. But today wasn't about work. Today was Sunday, and Sundays belonged to his mother. On his dresser sat a framed photograph that Darius looked at every single morning. A younger version of himself in marine dress blues, standing beside an older black man with tired eyes, calloused hands, and the proudest smile Darius had ever seen. His father. Beside the photo sat a folded American flag in a triangular wooden case, the kind they hand to families at military funerals while a bugler plays taps. Darius's father had worked 40 years as a postal worker. Rain or shine, snow or heat, 6 days a week for 4 decades. He never took a real vacation, never bought anything for himself, never complained. But every Sunday after church, father and son would walk downtown together. They'd pass the Ferrari dealership on Peachtree Street, and the old man would stop, press his weathered hand against the glass, stare at the red ones. One day, Darius, he'd say, his voice thick with a dream he knew he'd never afford. One day, you and me, we're going to ride in one of those. One day never came for his father. Cancer took him 2 years ago, pancreatic, stage 4 by the time they found it. 3 months from diagnosis to funeral. In his final letter, written in shaky handwriting on yellow legal paper, Darius's father left 5 words that changed everything. Get that red one, son. So Darius did. He found a certified pre-owned Ferrari Roma at a dealership in Buckhead. Rosso Corsa, red, the classic Ferrari crimson, the exact shade his father had always pointed to through that showroom glass. 8,000 miles on the odometer. Previous owner was a hedge fund manager who'd upgraded to a Lamborghini. The price was $198,000. Darius paid in cash, every dollar of his savings account, every dollar of his father's life insurance policy, every penny he'd put aside for 15 years. $200,000 of love, grief, and a promise kept. The car sat in his garage now, gleaming under LED lights like a museum piece. Darius ran his hand across the hood every morning before work, not because he loved luxury, not because he wanted to show off, but because every time he touched that car, he felt his father's presence. The passenger seat had never been sat in. Darius was saving it, waiting for his father to somehow, somewhere, take that ride. Today he was driving the Ferrari to Millbrook County to visit his mother. A simple Sunday trip. Nothing complicated, no federal business, no undercover work. He walked to his closet and opened the small safe bolted to the floor. Inside sat his Glock 19M service weapon, a leather credential case containing his gold FBI badge, and a backup magazine. He reached for the badge, then stopped. It was his day off. He was just visiting his mother. He didn't need to carry his credentials. He closed the safe. That decision would cost him $200,000. 20 minutes later, Darius was cruising down a 20 with the windows cracked, warm Georgia air flowing through the cabin. His phone sat in the center console, his mother's voice crackling through the speakers on a hands-free call. "You better not be speeding in that thing," she warned. "I don't care how much it cost." "A ticket is a ticket." Darius laughed. "Mama, I'm law enforcement. I follow the rules." "Mm-hmm. That's what your father used to say right before he got pulled over." "I'll be there by 2. Dinner's still at 6. Dinner's always at 6. Don't be late." He crossed the county line 15 minutes later. A green sign welcomed him to Millbrook County. Population 48,000. A family community. What the sign didn't mention, Millbrook County's median household income was $92,000. Its black population was 11%. And in the past 5 years, the Millbrook County Sheriff's Department had accumulated 52 formal complaints of racial profiling. Every single one had been dismissed. Darius pulled into a gas station just inside the county line. As he stepped out of the Ferrari, he noticed a white patrol car idling in the corner of the lot. The officer inside was watching him. Not the car. Him. Darius had been watched his entire life. He didn't react. What he didn't see was Officer Cody Whitaker picking up his radio. Dispatch, running plates on a red exotic vehicle. Decatur registration. Black male driver. Requesting backup to Shadow. Whitaker was 34 years old, 8 years on patrol. In that time, he'd racked up 8 formal complaints. Excessive force, racial slurs during traffic stops, unlawful vehicle searches, intimidation. Every complaint had been dismissed. His supervisors described him as thorough. His colleagues called him effective. The black residents of Millbrook County had other names for him. Darius finished pumping gas, replaced the nozzle, and pulled back onto the road. In his rearview mirror, he watched the patrol car ease out of the station lot, following him. His hands shifted to 10 and 2 on the steering wheel. His breathing remained steady. His heart rate stayed calm. He had no idea what was about to happen. But then again, neither did Officer Cody Whitaker. The patrol car followed Darius for exactly 3.7 miles before the lights came on. Blue and red strobes filled the rearview mirror. Darius checked his speedometer. 53 miles per hour in a 55 zone. He hadn't been speeding. His tags were current. His registration was valid. His insurance was paid. None of that mattered. Darius signaled immediately and pulled onto the shoulder, stopping on a stretch of empty 2-lane road bordered by Georgia pines. He'd done this before. Every black man in America had done this before. He knew the rules. Hands visible at all times, movement slow and deliberate, voice calm and respectful. Announce every action before you take it. Don't argue. Don't resist. Don't give them any excuse. Survive the encounter. Deal with the injustice later. Officer Whitaker approached the driver's side window with the swagger of a man who had never faced consequences in his life. His partner, Deputy Travis Langford, stayed by the patrol car, shifting his weight from foot to foot like someone who wanted to be anywhere else. License and registration. Whitaker's voice was flat, bored. "Keep your hands where I can see them." "Good afternoon, officer." Darius kept his tone neutral. "Professional. My license is in my wallet, back left pocket. My registration is in the glove box. I'm going to reach for them slowly. Is that acceptable? He narrated every movement. That was FBI training. Eliminate ambiguity, remove excuses, create a clear record. Whitaker examined the license. His eyes moved to the Ferrari's interior, the leather seats, the carbon fiber trim, the digital dashboard that cost more than his annual salary. Then back to Darius, Decatur. He said the word like it tasted bad. Long way from home, aren't you? I'm visiting my mother in Millbrook, officer. Nice car for someone from Decatur. Whitaker leaned into the window close enough that Darius could smell the coffee on his breath. Where'd you get the money for something like this? I purchased it legally. Is there a problem with my driving, officer? That's when Whitaker spat on the hood. The saliva landed on the Rosso Corsa paint and began sliding down toward the windshield. Darius watched it trail across the metal like a slug's path. $200,000, Whitaker said, shaking his head in theatrical disbelief, and a black boy driving it. He laughed, a sharp, ugly sound. Get your ass out of the car now. Officer, I have the right to know why I'm being detained. Did I say you could talk? Whitaker yanked the door open with enough force to strain the hinges. He grabbed Darius by the collar of his dress shirt, the shirt he'd ironed so carefully that morning, and dragged him out of the vehicle. Darius's shoulder hit the door frame. His knee scraped the running board. Whitaker slammed him face first against the hood. The metal was hot from the Georgia sun. It burned through Darius's shirt. You people are all the same. Whitaker's voice dripped with contempt. Thieves, drug dealers, pimps, animals. Where'd you get this car? You steal it? You sell crack for it? You pimp out your sister? Darius said nothing. His cheek pressed against the burning hood. His hands stayed flat beside his head. Answer me. Whitaker kicked Darius's legs apart with his boot. A monkey in a suit doesn't belong in a car like this. So where'd the money come from? I'm a federal employee. Darius's voice remained steady. Unnervingly steady. I saved for 15 years and purchased this vehicle legally. Whitaker burst out laughing. Federal employee? What? You deliver mail? You work at the post office like your daddy probably did? Darius's jaw tightened. The officer had no idea how close that comment cut. My name is Darius Kane. Badge number 7714. Whitaker's laughter stopped. His eyes narrowed. Badge number? What are you, a mall cop? Security guard at the welfare office? He turned to his partner. You hear that, Langford? This boy thinks he's somebody important. Deputy Langford looked at the ground. He said nothing. 50 yards down the road, a silver Toyota Camry pulled onto the shoulder. Behind the wheel sat Evelyn Harper, a 67-year-old retired schoolteacher who had taught third grade in Millbrook for 34 years. She was driving home from the grocery store with a trunk full of supplies for her church's food pantry. What she saw through her windshield made her stop. A black man pinned against a red sports car, a white officer standing over him. Something about the scene felt wrong. Deeply, fundamentally wrong. Evelyn Harper reached into her purse, pulled out her phone, and pressed record. Back at the Ferrari, Whitaker wasn't finished. I'm going to search this vehicle, he announced. Officer, I do not consent to a search. Darius's voice was calm but clear. I do not consent. Am I being detained? What is the probable cause for this stop? Whitaker ignored him. He walked around to the driver's side and began tearing through the interior. The glove box was emptied onto the passenger seat. Registration, insurance card, owner's manual scattered like trash. The center console was rifled through. Phone charger, sunglasses, a pack of gum thrown onto the floor. He pulled the custom floor mats out and threw them onto the asphalt. Then he pulled out a pocket knife. "Got to check for hidden compartments," he said to no one in particular. "Drug dealers like to hide their stash in the seats." He plunged the blade into the driver's seat, dragged it downward. The custom Italian leather split open like flesh. He stabbed again and again. 4 long gashes in the seat Darius's father had never gotten to sit in. Darius closed his eyes, breathed. He had faced cartel enforcers in interrogation rooms. He had talked down armed hostage takers in bank lobbies. He had sat across from serial killers without flinching. But watching this stranger destroy his father's dream, that was different. Whitaker emerged from the car, empty-handed, sweating, frustrated. He'd searched everything and found nothing, because there was nothing to find. But he wasn't done. He walked around the Ferrari slowly, examining it with exaggerated suspicion. His frustration was building. He'd expected to find something. Drugs, cash, guns, something that would justify what he was about to do. He found nothing but the smell of new leather and the ghost of an old man's dream. Whitaker stopped at the passenger side. He pulled out his keys and slowly, deliberately, he dragged them along the entire length of the car from headlight to tail light. A deep, jagged scratch that cut through the Rosso Corsa, paint down to bare metal. The sound was like a scream. He walked back to the driver's side, kicked the door twice with his boot. The aluminum panel crumpled inward like tin foil. He swung his heavy Maglite flashlight at the side mirror. It exploded into fragments that scattered across the asphalt like broken teeth. He climbed onto the hood and stomped once, twice, 3 times. Boot prints dented into the sculpted metal. "Looks like you've got some prior damage here," Whitaker said with a grin. "Shame about that. Maybe next time don't drive something you can't afford." Through all of it, Darius didn't move, didn't shout, didn't resist, but a single tear tracked down his cheek. Whitaker grabbed his radio. "Dispatch, I have a combative suspect resisting a lawful traffic stop, requesting immediate backup." "Officer." Darius's voice cut through the air. "I have not resisted. I have not moved. I have complied with every instruction. Your body camera is recording everything." Whitaker's grin widened. "Body cam. Yeah, funny thing about that. Had a malfunction. Battery died about 10 minutes ago." He shrugged. "Technology, right? Can't trust it." He walked toward Darius, grabbed him by the collar and threw him to the ground. Darius went limp, a trained response. "Don't resist. Don't give them an excuse." "Stop resisting," Whitaker shouted for the benefit of any potential witnesses. But Darius wasn't resisting. He was lying face down on hot asphalt with his hands behind his back. Evelyn Harper stepped out of her Camry, phone still recording. Her hands were shaking, but her voice was strong. "I'm filming this. This man did nothing wrong. I saw everything." Whitaker glanced at her. For half a second, something flickered in his eyes. Then it was gone. He slapped handcuffs onto Darius's wrists. "You're under arrest, resisting arrest, obstruction of justice, felony evasion." "I did not evade." Darius's cheek pressed into the asphalt. Tiny rocks bit into his skin. "I did not obstruct. I did not resist." Whitaker hauled him up and shoved him toward the patrol car. As Darius passed the Ferrari, he looked at what remained of his father's dream. The scratch running the entire length of the car, the crumpled door, the shattered mirror, the boot prints on the hood, the slashed seats visible through the open door. Then Whitaker did something that would define the rest of his life. He put Darius in the back of the patrol car and slammed the door. He walked back to his own cruiser, climbed in, started the engine, put it in reverse, and floored the accelerator. The patrol car rocketed backward and slammed into the front of the Ferrari with a sickening crunch. The hood crumpled like paper. The grille exploded into 1,000 pieces. Both headlights shattered. The radiator ruptured, spilling green fluid across the asphalt like blood. $200,000 of love and grief destroyed in 3 seconds. Through the cruiser's rear window, Darius watched in silence. Whitaker picked up his radio. His voice was casual, bored even. Dispatch, minor vehicle contact during the arrest. Suspect's vehicle rolled forward into my cruiser. No injuries. Send a tow truck. Evelyn Harper stood frozen on the shoulder, her phone capturing every second. The Ferrari. Darius's father's dream, his life savings, his promise kept, sat crumpled and smoking on the side of the road. Total damage, $127,000. Insurance assessment, total loss, salvage value, $8,200. Darius Kane said nothing. He didn't need to. He was already building his case. The Millbrook County Sheriff's Station smelled like burnt coffee and desperation. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting a sickly yellow glow across the booking area where Darius Kane stood in handcuffs, waiting to be processed, photographed, fingerprinted, cataloged like every other suspect who'd passed through those doors. The booking officer was a heavy-set woman in her 50s who looked like she'd seen everything and been impressed by nothing. She typed without looking up. Full name, Darius James Kane. Date of birth, March 15th, 1987. Address, 347 Maple Street, Decatur, Georgia. Occupation. Darius paused just for a moment. Federal government. The booking officer's fingers stopped moving. She looked up at him. Really looked. Something flickered across her face. Curiosity, maybe. Or recognition of something that didn't quite fit. Then she shrugged, typed it in, moved on. Another clue ignored. Another warning missed. They put Darius in a holding cell, gray concrete walls, metal bench, stainless steel toilet without a seat. The air smelled like disinfectant and fear. Darius sat down, folded his hands, breathed. Any other man in his position would have demanded his phone call immediately, would have shouted about his rights, would have threatened lawsuits and investigations and career-ending consequences. Darius did none of those things. He understood something that most people didn't. Timing was everything. If he revealed his identity now, the cover-up would begin within minutes. Documents would be shredded. Stories would be coordinated. Body camera footage would suffer permanent technical failures. Computer files would be accidentally deleted. He needed them to commit to their lies first. Needed the false reports filed. Needed the fabricated evidence documented. Needed every corrupt act locked into the official record before anyone knew who they were dealing with. So he sat and waited and let them think they'd won. His one phone call went to his mother. "Mama, I'm going to be late." Something came up. "Darius." Her voice was sharp with worry. "What's wrong? Where are you?" "I heard sirens earlier. I'm fine, Mama. I promise. Just a misunderstanding. I'll explain everything tomorrow. Darius James Kane. You tell me right now. I love you, Mama. I'll call you tomorrow." He hung up. Let them think he was broken. Let them believe they'd crushed another nobody. Let them get comfortable in their lies. Meanwhile, at his desk in the deputy's bullpen, Officer Cody Whitaker was typing his incident report with a satisfied smile. His fingers moved across the keyboard with the confidence of a man who had never faced consequences. Suspect exhibited erratic behavior upon initial contact. Failed to comply with lawful orders. made furtive movements toward his waistband, creating officer safety concerns. Suspect was removed from vehicle and secured without incident. Vehicle sustained minor damage when suspect's car rolled forward during the arrest, making contact with patrol unit. Body camera experienced technical failure at approximately 14:32 and was non-functional during the encounter. 7 lies in one paragraph, filed as official truth. Sergeant Carla Redmond reviewed the report in her office. She'd supervised Whitaker for 6 years. She'd signed off on every complaint dismissal, every use of force report, every accidental vehicle damage incident. She scanned the document, initialed the bottom. Good work, Whitaker. DA will probably plead this down to a misdemeanor, but at least we got another drug dealer off the road. Whitaker grinned. Just doing my job, Sergeant. Across town, in a modest living room decorated with family photos and church bulletins, Evelyn Harper sat on her couch with shaking hands. She'd watched her video 17 times. Each viewing made her angrier. The officer's cruiser backing up at full speed, the sickening crunch of metal, the black man in handcuffs who never raised his voice, never struggled, never did anything except exist in the wrong car in the wrong county with the wrong skin color. She picked up her phone and made 3 calls. First, the Millbrook County chapter of the NAACP. Second, the tip line at the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Third, she opened Facebook and uploaded the video with a simple caption: Millbrook PD destroys innocent man's car, arrests him for nothing. I saw everything. I have proof. Within 2 hours, the video had 50,000 views. Within 4 hours, 500,000. By sunset, it had crossed 2 million. Local news vans surrounded the sheriff's station like vultures circling a carcass. Reporters shouted questions at anyone in uniform. Cameras flashed, microphones thrust toward deputies who had no comment. By midnight, the video had gone national. Viral video shows Georgia deputy deliberately rammed $200,000 Ferrari during traffic stop. The Millbrook County Sheriff's Office released a statement at 11:47 p.m. We are aware of the video circulating on social media and stand firmly behind our deputy's professionalism. The vehicle contact shown in the video was accidental and occurred when the suspect's vehicle rolled forward during the arrest. The department will conduct a routine review of the incident. Accidental. The internet didn't buy it. Comments poured in by the thousands, angry, outraged, demanding justice. The video was shared, reshared, downloaded, and re-uploaded across every platform, but the real storm was brewing somewhere else entirely. FBI Atlanta Field Office, 9th floor. A young intelligence analyst named Tamika Brooks was scrolling through her news feed during a coffee break when she stopped cold. She knew that face. The booking photo on her screen belonged to a man she'd worked with 3 years ago on a public corruption case, a man who had helped take down a county commissioner and 2 city councilmen in a bribery scheme. Run this name, she said to the analyst at the next desk. Darius Kane, Decatur address. Run it now. The database search took 4 seconds. Tamika Brooks went pale. Oh my God. 15 minutes later, Assistant Special Agent in Charge Marcus Everett was on the phone. His voice was the temperature of liquid nitrogen. You're telling me that one of my agents, a 14-year veteran of the Public Corruption Unit, was arrested by some county deputy for resisting arrest, and that his personal vehicle worth $200,000 was totaled by that same deputy, and nobody thought to call us for... He checked his watch. 7 hours. He slammed a folder onto his desk hard enough to make his coffee cup jump. Get me Internal Affairs, FBI, and Millbrook County. Get me the U.S. Attorney's Office. Get me everything you can find on Officer Cody Whitaker. Every complaint, every incident report, every performance review. He paused. took a breath. We're going to handle this by the book. Another pause, longer this time, and then we're going to handle it my way. The next morning arrived gray and humid. The Georgia sky heavy with clouds that threatened rain but never delivered. Inside the Millbrook County Sheriff's Station, life continued as if nothing had changed. Coffee brewed, phones rang, deputies complained about paperwork and argued about football. Cody Whitaker arrived 20 minutes late, coffee in one hand, donut in the other, grinning like a man who just won the lottery. He'd watched the news coverage the night before, seen the outrage online, and he'd laughed at all of it. What were they going to do? He was a cop. He had the union. He had Sergeant Redmond. He had 8 years of getting away with everything. You see my arrest yesterday? He announced to a cluster of deputies near the vending machines. Guy thought he was somebody important driving that Ferrari. Turns out he's just another thug. Car looked like garbage when I was done with it. A few deputies laughed. Others scrolled their phones nervously, watching the viral video rack up another 1,000,000 views. None of them noticed the 3 black Chevrolet Suburbans pulling into the parking lot. Government plates, tinted windows, the kind of vehicles that only showed up when something very, very bad was about to happen. 8 agents stepped out in dark suits and darker expressions. They moved across the parking lot in formation, like soldiers advancing on enemy territory. Leading them was ASAC. Marcus Everett, 55 years old, 6'3", built like a linebacker who'd traded the field for federal law enforcement. His face looked like it had been carved from granite, and his eyes held all the warmth of a January morning in Minnesota. He pushed through the front doors and approached the reception desk. The deputy behind the counter looked up, confused. Everett didn't wait for a greeting. He held up his credentials. ASAC Marcus Everett, Federal Bureau of Investigation, Atlanta Field Office. I'm here regarding the arrest of Darius Kane. I need to speak with your sheriff, your internal affairs division, and the arresting officer immediately. The word FB. I moved through the station like an electric shock. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Coffee cups froze halfway to lips. Deputies who had been laughing moments earlier suddenly found urgent business elsewhere. Someone ran to get Sheriff Harlan Croft. The sheriff emerged from his office 30 seconds later, still buttoning his shirt, his face the color of sour milk. He was 58 years old, a political appointee with connections to the county commission, and no real law enforcement experience beyond managing budgets and attending fundraisers. FBI, his voice cracked. What's this about? Conference room now. Bring everyone involved in yesterday's arrest. 5 minutes later, the key players were assembled around a table that suddenly felt much too small. Sheriff Croft sat at one end, sweating through his shirt. Sergeant Carla Redmond sat beside him, arms crossed, jaw tight. Cody Whitaker slouched in his chair, trying to project the same confidence he'd felt that morning. His leg bounced nervously beneath the table, betraying him. Deputy Travis Langford stood in the corner, trying to make himself invisible. ASS. Everett stood at the opposite end of the table. He did not sit. He did not smile. He did not hurry. Slowly, deliberately, he placed a leather credential case on the table. He opened it. Gold FBI badge, official photograph. The face of the man Whitaker had beaten, humiliated, and arrested the day before. Special Agent Darius James Kane, Public Corruption Unit, 14 years of federal service, recipient of the FBI Medal for Meritorious Achievement. 3 letters of commendation, 0 disciplinary actions. Silence. The kind of silence that sounds like a career ending. Yesterday, Everett continued, his voice calm and precise. Your deputy arrested a 14-year veteran FBI agent. He charged him with resisting arrest, obstruction, and felony evasion. He paused. None of those events occurred. He slid a photograph across the table. The Ferrari, what remained of it, front end crushed, side gouged to bare metal, mirrors shattered, hood caved in with boot prints. Your deputy also destroyed Agent Kane's personal vehicle. $200,000. Total loss. Another photograph. The key scratch running the length of the car. He did this deliberately, with witnesses present on camera. He tapped his phone. Evelyn Harper's video played on the screen. The cruiser accelerating backward, the impact, the crunch of metal that sounded like bones breaking. Your deputy then filed an incident report claiming Everett pulled out a document and read from it. Vehicle sustained minor damage when suspect's car rolled forward during arrest. Would anyone in this room like to explain to me how a parked car rolls forward into a reversing police cruiser? Whitaker's face had gone white. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. I didn't know. His voice was barely a whisper. He didn't tell me he was... How was I supposed to? He told you he was a federal employee. Everett's voice hardened. He gave you his badge number. You laughed and called him a mall cop. Then you keyed his car, kicked in his door, shattered his mirror, stomped on his hood, and rammed it with your cruiser while he watched from the back of your patrol vehicle. He turned to Sergeant Redmond. And you, Sergeant, you signed off on this report. A report that claims Agent Kane reached toward his waistband. He held up the document. There is no moment in any footage, body camera, witness video, or dash cam that supports this claim. You also approved a report describing $127,000 in deliberate destruction as minor vehicle contact. Redmond's arms uncrossed. Her confident posture crumbled. I relied on my deputy's account. You endorsed a false federal document. You facilitated a cover-up that makes you complicit in civil rights violations. Everett looked at Deputy Langford, still trying to disappear into the corner. And you, Deputy Langford, you were present for the entire encounter. You watched your partner assault a federal agent, destroy his property, file a false report, and you said nothing. Did nothing. Langford stared at the floor. His hands trembled. Here's what we're looking at. Everett's voice filled the room. Civil rights violation under 18 U.S.C. Section 242. Deprivation of rights under color of law, false statements to federal investigators, obstruction of justice, destruction of property, evidence tampering, and, depending on how many people in this room knew what was happening and chose to remain silent, conspiracy. He let that word hang in the air like a guillotine blade. The FBI is assuming jurisdiction over this investigation. Your cooperation will be documented. Your obstruction will be prosecuted. You have the right to legal counsel. I suggest you exercise it. He picked up the credential case and closed it. All charges against Agent Kane were dropped 45 minutes ago. His arrest has been expunged from every database. This meeting is being recorded. Federal agents will begin collecting evidence within the hour. He walked toward the door, paused. One more thing. Agent Kane's specialty, the thing he spent 14 years doing, is investigating corrupt public officials, dirty cops, crooked politicians, people who abuse their power. He looked directly at Whitaker. You picked the wrong man. In the holding area, a cell door opened with a metallic clang. Darius Kane stood. An FBI agent handed him his personal effects, wallet, phone, keys to a car that no longer existed. He walked through the station lobby in silence. Deputies stared. Some looked away in shame. Others pretended to be busy with paperwork. Whitaker, being escorted to an interview room, passed within 3 feet of him. Their eyes met. Darius said nothing. He didn't need to. Outside, the sun had broken through the clouds. A SAC Everett waited by one of the Suburbans. "You could have called us yesterday," Everett said. "One phone call and we would have had 20 agents here within the hour." Darius nodded slowly. "If I had, they would have started destroying evidence before you arrived, shredding documents, aligning stories, making sure the body camera footage was permanently lost. So you let them think they'd won. I let them commit to their lies, file their false reports, document their cover-up. I needed the evidence locked in before anyone knew who I was." Everett studied him for a long moment. "You built the case against yourself." Darius's voice was quiet. "No, I built the case against them." He walked to the impound lot. The Ferrari sat alone in a corner, cordoned off with yellow tape. The front end was caved in. The hood buckled. The passenger side looked like it had been attacked with a chainsaw. Fluid stained the concrete beneath. Darius placed his hand on the crushed roof, closed his eyes. His father had never sat in this car, never felt the engine rumble, never smelled the leather interior, never experienced the dream he'd carried for 40 years, and now it was destroyed. Because a man with a badge had looked at Darius and seen only a color, only a stereotype, only someone who didn't deserve what he had. $200,000, twisted metal, shattered glass, a promise kept and a promise broken at the same time. Darius stood there for a long time. Then he walked away. There was work to do. The FBI's Civil Rights Division opened a formal investigation within 48 hours of the incident. 16 agents were assigned to the case, more than most murder investigations received. Evidence technicians descended on Millbrook County like locusts, collecting documents, cloning hard drives, and cataloging every piece of equipment Whitaker had touched in the past 5 years. But the FBI wasn't working alone. Under intense federal pressure, Millbrook County was forced to launch its own internal affairs probe. For the first time in the department's 73-year history, that investigation would be conducted under federal supervision. Lieutenant Rochelle Simmons was assigned to lead the county's internal review. 52 years old, 30 years in law enforcement, and one of only 3 black officers above the rank of sergeant in the entire department, she had built her career by being twice as good as everyone else in rooms that didn't want her there. She understood exactly what was at stake. The body camera evidence came first. Whitaker had claimed his camera malfunctioned. Battery failure, technical glitch, the kind of random equipment problem that could happen to anyone. The FBI's Digital Evidence Laboratory told a different story. The camera was manually powered down at 14:32. The forensic analyst testified, 4 minutes before the subject vehicle was damaged. It was powered back on at 14:51, 19 minutes later, after the suspect was already in custody and the vehicle was destroyed. The camera hadn't malfunctioned. It had been deliberately disabled. But Whitaker didn't know about Evelyn Harper. He didn't know her phone had captured everything his camera had conveniently missed. The ramming, the grin on his face, the casual radio call reporting minor vehicle contact, all of it in high definition with audio. Next came the pattern analysis. FBI analysts pulled 8 years of Whitaker's traffic stop records. Every interaction, every arrest, every incident report. They cross-referenced demographics, vehicle values, outcomes, and complaints. What they found was damning. 37 traffic stops involving black drivers in high-value vehicles, Mercedes, BMWs, Lexuses, Teslas. In every single case, Whitaker had cited suspicious behavior or erratic driving as probable cause for the stop. In only 2 of those 37 stops was an actual citation issued. In 0 cases was any contraband found. His body camera had malfunctioned during 11 of those stops, And in 7 cases, 7 separate incidents over 8 years, the vehicles had sustained what Whitaker's reports described as incidental damage during the encounter. Scratches on paint, dented doors, cracked windows, broken mirrors, all ruled accidental, all signed off by Sergeant Carla Redmond. Darius Kane wasn't Whitaker's first victim. He was his 38th. The only difference was that Darius Kane had the power to fight back. Deputy Travis Langford's interview took place in a small room with gray walls, a metal table, and a recording device. Lieutenant Rochelle Simmons sat across from him. She didn't rush, didn't pressure, just waited. Langford's leg bounced, his hands twisted together. He looked everywhere except at her eyes. "You were there the entire time," Simmons said finally. "You watched him pull Mr. Kane from his vehicle. You watched him key the car, kick the door, shatter the mirror. You watched him reverse his cruiser into the front end at full speed." She paused. "And you said nothing, did nothing. Why?" Langford's voice cracked. I wanted to. I knew it was wrong, but Whitaker, everyone knows you don't cross him. Redmond protects him. The union protects him. If I'd said something, I'd have been writing parking tickets in the worst precinct in the county for the rest of my career. So you chose your career over that man's rights. I have a family, kids, a mortgage." His voice broke. "I was scared." Simmons leaned forward. "Deputy Langford, you have a choice right now. Cooperate fully. Tell us everything you saw, everything you heard, everything you know, and we can discuss your future in law enforcement. Stay silent and you'll be included in the obstruction charges, conspiracy, accessory after the fact." Long silence. Langford's hands stopped twisting. "I'll cooperate. I'll tell you everything." He took a breath. He planned it before we even pulled the guy over. We were at the gas station and Whitaker saw the Ferrari, saw the black guy driving it, and he said, "Watch me teach this one a lesson about driving cars he can't afford. Premeditation on the record. Admissible in federal court." Langford kept talking. He does this all the time. Every time he sees a black guy in a nice car, it's the same thing. Drug dealer, pimp, stolen. He's got this hatred, like it personally offends him when they have something nice and no one's ever reported him. People have, lots of people, but the complaints never go anywhere. Redmond signs off on everything. The sheriff doesn't want the headache. The union fights every investigation. He looked up, met Simmons' eyes. "Everyone knows. No one does anything. We just let it happen." Sergeant Carla Redmond's interview was different. She arrived with a union lawyer and a chip on her shoulder the size of Millbrook County, sat down with her arms crossed and her jaw set. She didn't stay confident for long. "Sergeant Redmond, you've supervised Deputy Whitaker for 6 years. In that time, he accumulated 8 formal complaints: excessive force, racial slurs, unlawful searches, 7 incidents of accidental vehicle damage during traffic stops. You signed off on every dismissal, every use of force report, every incident. I followed departmental procedures. You also wrote in a performance evaluation. The FBI agent pulled out a document that Deputy Whitaker demonstrates exemplary dedication to proactive policing. Can you explain what proactive policing means when it involves deliberately destroying a citizen's $200,000 vehicle?" Redmond's lawyer whispered in her ear. "I'm invoking my Fifth Amendment rights. That's your choice. But your signature is on 7 false reports documenting vehicle damage as accidental. You either knew what Whitaker was doing and approved it, or you were negligent to the point of criminal complicity." The agent leaned forward. "Either way, Sergeant, your career in law enforcement is over. The only question is whether you'll spend the next few years in a federal prison." Sheriff Harlan Croft wasn't formally interviewed. He was too busy trying to save his political career. His meeting with county legal counsel lasted 4 hours. Sheriff, the situation is worse than we initially assessed. The FBI has jurisdiction because the victim is a federal agent. We're looking at civil rights violations, destruction of federal property, obstruction, conspiracy. If the feds press charges and we don't cooperate, we're facing a consent decree, federal oversight of our entire department for years, maybe a decade. What do? Get ahead of it. Terminate Whitaker immediately. Suspend Redmond. Announce reforms before they're mandated. Make it look like we're taking action voluntarily instead of having it forced on us. And if we don't? The lawyer sighed. Then Millbrook County becomes a national symbol of police corruption. Property values drop, tax revenue falls, businesses relocate, and you personally become the face of everything that went wrong. Croft fired Whitaker that afternoon. Evelyn Harper gave her testimony in a formal conference room at FBI headquarters in Atlanta. She wore her Sunday best, a navy blue dress with a pearl brooch, and sat with her hands folded on the table. Her voice was steady, but tears streamed down her face. I've lived in Millbrook for 30 years, taught third grade for 34 years. I raised my children there, buried my husband there. I always believed our police officers were good people doing hard jobs. She paused, wiped her eyes. But what I saw that day, I can't unsee it. That man did nothing wrong, nothing. He was polite, respectful. He followed every instruction. And that officer, he enjoyed hurting him. You could see it in his face. He was smiling when he scratched that car, laughing when he broke the mirror. And when he backed his cruiser into it, that wasn't an accident. He looked right at what he was doing, and he floored it. She pulled out a tissue, dabbed her eyes. I'm 67 years old. I've never made a complaint about anything in my life, but I know what I saw. And when I saw it, I knew I had to do something. Even if I was scared, even if it cost me friends, even if it made my life harder. She looked directly at the camera. Somebody had to be a witness. Somebody had to tell the truth. Darius Kane gave his formal statement that same day in the same building, in a different room. I complied with every instruction. I identified myself as a federal employee. I gave my badge number. I asked for probable cause 4 times. I did not resist. I did not obstruct. I did not evade. His voice was calm, measured, the voice of a man who had testified in dozens of federal cases. And he destroyed my car anyway. Not because I did anything wrong, not because he had any evidence of any crime, but because he looked at me and saw something that offended him. A black man with something nice. A black man who didn't look like he was supposed to look. A black man who didn't belong. He paused. That car was my father's dream. My father worked 40 years as a postal worker, never took a vacation, never bought himself anything. But every Sunday we'd walk past the Ferrari dealership and he'd put his hand on the glass and say, "One day, son. One day." Darius's voice caught just for a moment. He died 2 years ago. His last wish was for me to buy that car. So I did. Every dollar I'd saved for 15 years, every dollar of his life insurance, I bought it so he could finally have his dream. Even if he wasn't here to see it. He straightened. And Cody Whitaker destroyed it in 15 minutes because I'm black. Because he thought no one would believe me. Because he thought he could get away with it like he'd gotten away with it 37 times before. His eyes met the camera. He was wrong. The investigation continued for 3 months. The media attention never wavered. Cable news discussed the case nightly. Social media raged. Millbrook County became synonymous with everything wrong with American policing. And Darius Kane said nothing publicly. No interviews, no press conferences, no statements. He let the evidence speak. But justice came with a price. His face was everywhere, every news broadcast, every social media feed, every discussion about police reform and racial profiling. The undercover career he'd spent 14 years building was effectively over. His ability to work covert operations, his greatest skill, his primary value to the Bureau, was gone. And the Ferrari was gone too. Insurance declared it a total loss. Salvage value, $8,200. A $200,000 car reduced to scrap metal. Some losses can't be recovered. Some costs can't be reimbursed. Attorney Preston Vale was 60 years old, silver-haired, sharp-eyed, a former federal prosecutor who had spent the second half of his career as a civil rights attorney, suing police departments across the South. He met with Darius in a quiet office overlooking downtown Atlanta. Agent Kane, the FBI will handle the criminal prosecution. That's their jurisdiction. But there's also a civil case here. Against Whitaker personally, against Millbrook County, against a system that allowed this to happen 52 times before you came along. I'm not interested in money. I'm not talking about money for you. I'm talking about accountability, about making it so expensive to protect bad cops that counties can't afford to do it anymore. Vale leaned forward. Your car was worth $198,000. Your undercover career, conservatively valued at decades of federal service, has been compromised. Your father's memory has been violated. The damages are substantial. And if we win, donate every penny if you want. But first, make them pay it. Hit them where it actually hurts, their budget, their insurance premiums, their political careers. Darius was silent for a long moment. Do it. The press conference was held on a Tuesday morning. Sheriff Harlan Croft stood at a podium bristling with microphones, looking like a man facing a firing squad. After a thorough internal review, Deputy Cody Whitaker has been terminated for cause. His conduct, including the deliberate destruction of a citizen's vehicle, violated our department's values, our training, and the constitutional rights of an American citizen. This behavior will not be tolerated in Millbrook County. 8 years of complaints, 7 damaged vehicles, 0 consequences until he wrecked the wrong man's car. 2 weeks later, the federal indictment came down. Former Deputy Cody Whitaker has been indicted on federal civil rights charges, including deprivation of rights under color of law, destruction of property, falsifying federal records, and obstruction of justice. These charges carry a combined maximum sentence of 20 years in federal prison. Sergeant Carla Redmond was suspended without pay for 90 days and permanently demoted to patrol officer. Her supervisory failure, including signing off on 7 false accidental damage reports, was cited as enabling Whitaker's pattern of abuse. She resigned 3 months later rather than face further investigation. The civil case moved faster than anyone expected. County lawyers knew they couldn't win. The video was too clear, the pattern too established, the public outrage too intense. Millbrook County settled for $2,400,000. Darius Kane donated every cent. One portion went to a scholarship fund for black law enforcement officers, another to a wrongful conviction legal defense fund. The largest portion, $800,000, went to Evelyn Harper's church renovation project. He never told her. She found out when the contractor showed her the anonymous donation receipt. The federal consent decree was signed 6 months after the incident. 5 years of mandatory federal oversight. New training requirements, body camera policies with immediate termination for tampering. Mandatory documentation of any vehicle damage during traffic stops. A civilian review board with subpoena power. For the first time in Millbrook County's history, someone was watching the watchers. Deputy Travis Langford testified fully against his former partner. He wasn't criminally charged. His cooperation had earned him that. Instead, he was reassigned to the training division where he now teaches a course on intervention, how to stop a fellow officer from crossing the line. He calls it, "What I Should Have Done." The sentencing hearing was held on a cold morning in December. Cody Whitaker stood before a federal judge in civilian clothes. His uniform was gone. His badge was gone. His swagger was gone. "Mr. Whitaker, you have pleaded guilty to 1 count of deprivation of rights under color of law and 1 count of destruction of property. Do you understand the consequences of this plea?" His voice was barely audible. "Yes, Your Honor. You are sentenced to 51 months in federal prison. You are ordered to pay $198,000 in restitution for the destroyed vehicle. You are permanently barred from employment in law enforcement in any jurisdiction in the United States. 51 months. 4 years and 3 months behind bars." Darius Kane donated the restitution, too. He didn't attend the sentencing. He was working, back in the field, investigating public corruption. A new case, a new target. When a colleague asked why he'd skipped the hearing, Darius shrugged. "The best revenge is doing your job well." Evelyn Harper sat in the back row of the courtroom that day. She watched the man who had terrorized a stranger on a roadside get led away in handcuffs. She thought about pressing record on that afternoon 6 months ago. Sometimes courage is just pressing a button. 1 year later, Darius Kane pulled into a Ferrari dealership in Atlanta. A salesman approached, eyes bright with commission dreams. "Beautiful day, sir. Looking to upgrade." Darius looked at the cars. Red ones, black ones, silver ones, each one worth more than most people made in 5 years. He thought about his father, the Sunday walks, the hand pressed against the glass. "No," he said quietly, "just looking." He walked away. The insurance had paid out. The restitution had been donated. He could have afforded another Ferrari. He chose not to. Some things can't be replaced. Some dreams belong to a moment that's gone. He bought a Honda Accord instead. Silver, practical, enough to get him to his mother's house on Sundays. That was enough. In his home office, Darius placed a new photograph on his dresser. Not of the pristine Ferrari he'd once owned, but of the wreckage. The crumpled hood, the shattered grille, the deep scratch running from headlight to tail light. Behind it, reflected in the remaining intact glass, was his father's face from the old photograph. He kept it there as a reminder, not of the hate, but of why the fight matters. Evelyn Harper's church held a dedication ceremony for the new community hall. A small plaque hung by the entrance, restored through the generosity of a friend. She never learned who donated the money. She had her suspicions. Standing before her congregation, she smiled. Sometimes courage is just pressing record, and sometimes kindness comes from people you tried to help. I don't know who gave us this gift, but I know why. Because good people exist, even when bad things happen. Darius Kane was asked months later if he was still angry. He thought about it. I was. I still am. Sometimes. I lost my father's dream. I lost every dollar I'd saved. I lost the chance to work undercover again because my face is everywhere. He paused. But anger without purpose is just noise. I took what happened and made it mean something. Not everyone can do that. Not everyone should have to. That's why systems need to change. So it's not on individuals to be perfect, to be patient, to be lucky, to have a witness with a camera, to happen to be an FBI agent. His voice softened. Most people who go through what I went through don't get justice. They just get trauma. The system failed 52 times before me. I was 53. I was the lucky one. He wasn't bitter. He wasn't broken. He was something harder to describe. Transformed. Cody Whitaker served 43 months of his 51-month sentence before early release. He is permanently barred from law enforcement. He still owes $198,000 in restitution. Millbrook County remains under federal oversight until 2029. Evelyn Harper's video has been viewed 52 million times. Darius Kane still visits his mother every Sunday. He drives a Honda now, but sometimes late at night, he sits in his garage and looks at the empty space where the Ferrari used to be. And he remembers his father's words. One day, son, one day came. It just didn't end the way either of them expected, but maybe that's the point. Justice isn't about happy endings. It's about making sure the next person, the next black man, pulled over for driving the wrong car in the wrong county, has a better chance than you did. Darius Kane didn't become a symbol because he wanted to. He became one because a man with a badge saw a car, saw a color, and decided he already knew the whole story. He was wrong. And now the whole world knows it. If this story made you feel something, anger, hope, or just the need to think, share it with someone who needs to hear it, because stories like Darius's don't spread themselves. We spread them.